This is Business Inspires, a monthly podcast of the TriVillage Chamber Partnership. To run a successful business, you need resources, valuable connections, and community recognition. Business Inspires will provide you with the tools, resources, and examples to inspire you to create the business you're envisioning. Here's Michelle Wilson, Executive Director of the TriVillage Chamber Partnership.
Our first of many Business Inspires podcasts. In this episode, we're speaking with Laura Oldham of Starburst Media. Laura, thank you so much for being our first guest on Business Inspires.
Thank you for having me.
We want to talk to you today about your decision to start a business, move to Columbus, all of those things that you did a few years back, and just be candid, and we just want to hear your real story. So let's start out with a fun question, which was, what did Laura want to be when she grew up?
That is a funny question because I wanted to be so many different things. I would say probably top 10, I wanted to be a writer, an actress, a restaurant owner, a scientist. I wanted to be in math. I really enjoyed history and considered psychology. So it was really...
Well, that's very right brain, left brain.
Yeah, it was kind of all over the place. It switched every week. So one week I'd be writing 20-page novels, and the next week I would be cooking gourmet grilled cheese for my siblings. So it was kind of all over the place.
That's awesome. So how does some of your childhood dreams tie into what you do today?
Well, I was kind of thinking about that a few weeks ago, actually. Like, where did I land where I am now, which is on the internet? It's funny because every day I kind of do a little bit of all the things I wanted to do. I write every day, not necessarily for Saturday Night Live like I wanted to, but I get to write, sometimes funny for some clients, sometimes very serious law firm content, but it's all over the place, which kind of, I mean, when I was a kid, what I wanted to be was all over the place. So from day to day, everything is different. There's really not any predictability, which is something that I thrive on, is the constant stress of what might pop up day to day. And that's something that I really like about just having my own small business, because I do accounting, which I like. I was in an accounting club in high school and won statewide competitions. So, I mean, there's the math, there's the words, there's acting. Like, I like to network because it's such a hard thing for me. And there's just a little bit of all the things I always wanted to do.
And Laura, you serve as our chamber president, so networking is a big part of what the chamber does, and we connect businesses, and you do that, and that's great that you can act that way, but also that you do a very good job of it, and you do help us connect businesses each day. So you touched a little bit on what you do with business, but tell us about Starburst Media.
Sure. So I started Starburst Media almost 7 years ago. I was living in Chicago without any financial responsibilities, so it was very easy for me to quit. At the time, I was working at 2 different bars as well as an internet startup, so it wasn't difficult to kind of throw everything to the side because I didn't have a mortgage or a child or all the things that I, have as commitments today. And I was very fortunate where my then boyfriend, now husband, encouraged me to do it and said he would be willing to financially support me during the inevitably hard first few years. But my background was in journalism, and advertising copywriting was kind of the jump I took after college, and then digital marketing, working with some internet startups. So I kind of wanted to roll up all of the skills, basically, that I'd come up with and try to come up with a way to do it for myself that wasn't having to work 80-hour weeks so that I could, actually pay my rent in Chicago. So when I started, I thought I was going to be just copywriting and social media because that's what I had all the experience in. But every single business that came to me and that I, talked to, they all wanted help with their websites. Every small business needed even the simplest website. So, and this was, 7 years ago, I started taking classes on Lynda and Skillshare and whatever other free or very inexpensive services I could find to learn HTML and CSS and a little bit about, PHP and JavaScript. And I'm not an expert necessarily in coding, but I know enough that I can get a simple website for a small business together pretty quickly. And it's evolved a lot since then, where I work with a lot, bigger businesses and more complicated websites. But at the very beginning, the whole goal was to be able to help, like, people like my parents. Both of them own their own small businesses. And the big issue that they had was they would want a website, but developers would charge them a ton and not be willing to help them, when they need to make small changes. So what I wanted to do was come up with a way to basically empower these small business owners to make changes themselves. So my philosophy has always been to provide, tutorials at the end when a website's launched, so that the small business owner doesn't necessarily need to depend upon someone like me when they, have a new employee join their team. So that was kind of how I evolved into doing websites. And now, day to day, probably about 80% of my time is doing websites, and the social media and copywriting is done by my assistant, who does a fantastic job of keeping up with that, whereas I am really enjoying doing the website work now.
So that's what you prefer. And that's what it's evolved to. Yeah,
exactly. But I still like helping with the social media, but the older and more tired I get, day-to-day social media posting is a little tough.
So what was the very first website you designed?
It was actually at the bar I was working at the time. It was for Patty Long's Beer and Bacon Pub in Chicago. It was a $300 bar trade. So the first website I built, I got a lot of bacon and some beer out of it.
Okay, great.
God bless Pat, the owner, for being willing to let me try it and having faith in me. But that was my first big, quote unquote, big website, and my first ongoing social media client. And it was really fun to watch them. They landed on the Travel Channel and the Food Network and all these other places while I was doing the social media, and it felt like, hey, this is actually helping their business. So it was a really cool way to start.
And what brought you to Columbus?
Well, what Doug and I realized was we had gotten what we wanted to get out of Chicago. Basically, we weren't going to the museums, we weren't going to the beach to play volleyball. We were going to the same, bar and restaurant down the street, ordering in the same Chinese takeout, but we were paying a lot more for a very, very small place. And when we got serious about, we're going to want a family at some point, we want a house. And if we want to do that in Chicago, we're going to need to make millions of dollars more because we weren't interested necessarily in moving to the Chicago suburbs, where it takes 2 hours to get into the city. So we did a tour of the Midwest, basically, and considered different cities. We like Pittsburgh, Louisville, Cincinnati, and Cleveland. And we came to visit Columbus. It was the first time I'd been here since college, which I had in my head what Columbus was. And it was, being drunk on Iuka and these other streets on campus. And we came to Columbus to visit just to see, what it was like. And it happened to be ComFest weekend, and we fell in love. And we just, what a great energy, young city, but not necessarily in age, but more so in the way that the city felt like it's on the verge of really growing into something even more awesome than it already is. So, and another very irresponsible but gut reaction, we got on Craigslist and we found an apartment, and we didn't see it before we got it, but it's in the Grandview area, and we rolled up with a U-Haul at about 10 o'clock on a Tuesday night. We're like, oh my gosh, look at this adorable neighborhood. There's this cute little theater. There's all these restaurants and bars, and it was just kind of by dumb luck that we landed in the area after doing some research on LinkedIn and Yelp. And we've just loved the TriVillage area. We moved 5.5 years ago, and now we have a house in Upper Arlington, and we have a yard and a dog and a child and all the things that we knew, almost a decade ago that were not going to happen within the city limits of Chicago.
Michelle will be right back with her guest on Business Inspires right after this.
The historic neighborhood of Grandview and its surrounding area have long been one of Central Ohio's top dining destinations, and over the past few years it has steadily become even more diverse and innovative in its offerings. Hi, this is Bethia Wolf from Columbus Food Adventures. We're proud to offer our Grandview Avenue walking food tour with its exciting mix of landmark restaurants, bakeries, and other food stops. The contrast between the established and the new is one of the themes of this food tour. You'll experience dependably sublime cooking from restaurant stalwarts such as Third and Hollywood and Filio, as well as bites from newer restaurants in the neighborhood. There will be 7 food and beverage stops in total, as well as the sharing of the history of the neighborhood as we stroll along the Grandview Avenue strip. In total, the tour will provide enough delicious food to replace one meal. The walking tour starts at 2:30 p.m. on Saturdays and lasts approximately 3 hours. The tour runs year-round. Buy tickets now at columbusfoodadventures.com. Thanks to Destination Grandview and the TriVillage Chamber Partnership for letting us be part of this Business Inspires. Keep listening after the Business Inspires podcast for more information about Columbus Food Adventures.
And now back to Michelle and her guest on Business Inspires.
So how did you start your business here? How did you reach out to potential clients and establish yourself?
You know, this is going to be the greatest endorsement for the chamber, but the first thing I did before I even moved...
Endorse away.
Before I even moved to Columbus was I reached out to Michelle and I said, I'm a small business owner looking to grow my business and I'm going to be moving. Actually, I said I'm going to be moving to Grandview, and we set up our meeting at Stoff's, and that was a day or two after we had moved to Columbus, and Michelle told me that we were actually in 5th by Northwest, not in Grandview. So the Craigslist listing wasn't necessarily completely truthful, but that's totally fine. We're in the Grandview area. And I met with you and joined the chamber, I think, the next day. Started coming to all the luncheons and being very nervous about it, but it was honestly the best move I could make, as far as I met so many people who immediately were like, oh my gosh, I've been looking for someone who could help me with my website. You know, I have a local restaurant or a travel agency or whatever. And it's been wonderful where I've had a chance to work with all these small businesses, especially in the TriVillage area. And I feel like I get to make great connections with these people and actually hopefully make a difference in their business and their day-to-day lives.
Well, I definitely think you do. And I think that's the beauty of our area, is that, and working with other small business owners, is that you get to make these connections and they become friends down the road, or they come back to you for more business. And if it's, for instance, coding or something that is something you might need to farm out, then, we refer these businesses on to other people, and we keep all of these connections going, and it's very beneficial to everybody involved. So tell me what some of the challenges you have been through or faced as a small business owner, whether it was just starting out or even currently. What are some challenges that you're facing? I mean,
I'd say month to month, the challenges change. Obviously, the biggest stress is whether I will be able to pay my bills. So, because month to month, you don't know how much work is going to come in and how many computers are going to crash, which last year I had 2 computers that needed to be completely replaced, which was, thank goodness I could, but you just don't know what's going to pop up day to day. And being able to pay for childcare is a real stress when you don't know every 2 weeks you're going to get, this dollar amount check. I mean, that's been a stress from the beginning, and I can't imagine any day when it's going to be completely out of the picture. I always have a fear that maybe I want my clients to always be happy. I want them to feel like they are getting value from my work, and that's something that I will probably always second guess myself on. But, so in my office, I've surrounded myself with thank you cards from clients from the last 7 years to try to remind myself that people do appreciate what I'm doing and the time and effort that goes into the work we do for them, even if they don't always all send thank you cards. I've been fortunate to have a lot who were very kind and did.
I was going to ask you how you persevere when you face a challenge, and if it sounds like one of your big challenges is self-assurance, and so you're surrounding yourself with those notes, and I'm sure that gets you through moments. But was there one really great piece of advice that somebody gave you along the way that really made you want to stick with what you were doing and not throw in the towel and go find a corporate job that does guarantee a every 2-week paycheck with benefits?
I mean, so when I said I was going to start this, everyone said that it was a foolish decision, and by all means it was. But Doug stuck by me and said, this is your best bet, because I don't really fit into a perfect job for a corporate job. There's nothing that would be my dream to do day to day. So for me, being able to have all these crazy things that pop up is actually something that's good for me. As far as good advice, just sticking with it and believing in myself is a thing that I strive to do every day. My office has all these inspirational quotes that I put up on the wall and some banners and pennants, and I just try to keep it as the most positive. I literally switched to a standing desk, so I'm always up physically. But I would say just trying to stick with it, but, being realistic.
Sure. How about talking about some of the sacrifices it takes to be a business owner, a small business owner?
So when I first started out and I did not have tons of clients, it was a picnic to work for myself. Like literally living in Chicago, Doug and I would say, do you want to go to the Cubs game today? Sure. It's Wednesday afternoon. Why not? Let's walk to Wrigley. And that is not my reality anymore. But, at first someone said, yeah, when you work for yourself, you can work whatever 16 hours a day you want. And at first I was like, oh, yeah, haha. But more and more that is the reality, that I'm fortunate that I really like what I do, because I'm working most nights and weekends to try to make sure that I'm staying on top of all the requests. But I'd say work-life balance is probably the biggest thing that you kind of have to accept. You're never going to get exactly right, especially once you have kids, because there's all these wonderful ideas in your head of how things will look when you have children and you work for yourself. You say, oh, I'm going to be around so much more, and I can work from home instead of having daycare. And the last year and a half of my life has definitely taught me a lot of lessons where there's not going to be a perfect balance, but accept whatever it is at that time and just kind of love it as much as you can.
That's great. So what, if anything, would you perhaps do differently if you were starting your business today, already established in Columbus, Ohio, and with family? And
I would have maybe $100,000 to back me up when I started, so I could be a little bit smarter with the way things went. But I don't know. It's hard to say. If I started my business now, I'm a very different person at a very different time of my life than I was almost a decade ago, where things would have to be a lot more calculated. I would probably be going to classes to make sure that I'm making a well-thought-out business plan instead of just kind of shooting from the hip. I'm fortunate that things have worked out how they have, because on paper, things probably shouldn't have, because a lot of reckless decisions were made based entirely upon my gut, such as moving to Columbus, Ohio, just because we thought it had a nice vibe. Like, that is a ridiculous decision. But, it did work out great.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fantastic. So I'd like to kind of wrap this up with how does Laura Oldham define success?
For me, I would say success is being able to comfortably pay my bills and feel like I'm making a difference in the people's lives that I talk to every day. It means a lot to me when the general tone of emails, texts, Facebook messages, and calls from clients, because I get all of them constantly. When they're positive, I feel like, okay, I'm doing the right thing. This is good. I would say just being able to pay my bills and keep clients happy, that's what I would say is my success. And, day to day depends how you define it.
Well, congratulations. And we're so happy to have you and Starburst here in our area, and certainly helping a lot of clients. And if people wanted to find Starburst, how would they do that?
You can visit my website, starburstcolumbus.com. It's got a lot of clients on the portfolio from the TriVillage area, thanks to, honestly, my involvement with the chamber. The then Grandview area chamber, now TriVillage Chamber, has been fantastic for me to be able to find people to work with.
Great. Thank you so much, Laura. We appreciate you joining us on Business Inspires.
Thank you.
Thanks for subscribing, downloading, and listening to Business Inspires, a monthly podcast of the TriVillage Chamber Partnership. Our innovative and active chamber is successful because of our smart and engaged members who cultivate our strong business community. With more than 60 years as an integral part of the Grandview, Upper Arlington, and Marble Cliff communities, the TriVillage Chamber Partnership is dedicated to a single purpose: the success of the business community. You can find a link to our website in the podcast notes to learn more about the TriVillage Chamber Partnership. For information about this podcast, to schedule a guest appearance, or to find out more about sponsoring this podcast, our contact information is in the podcast notes. Make sure you rate and review our podcast on iTunes. That helps us spread the word about Business Inspires.
This is North American Broadcasting's Brett Johnson. As you heard in the Business Inspires podcast, we're going to continue to hear more about Columbus food adventures in this Business Inspires podcast extra. Brian Cheeks from Destination Grandview, our Business Inspires podcast partner, suggested we include Columbus food adventures in our initial podcast. But Thea, how did you come up with this title, Food Adventures?
Well, we wanted to start a food tour company in Columbus, and I think we knew that some of our tours were going to be a little more on the adventurous side. We're very passionate about ethnic food in Columbus and the taco truck scene and food trucks in Columbus. So I think kind of that's where the adventure side of it, that it wasn't, not all the tours were going to be just kind of the standard walking tours, that we were going to do some things that are a little bit more unusual. So
your background, a lot of food.
Yeah, I like to eat. I like to travel. And, food is just such a great way to connect with different places. And, we love to say, within Columbus, you can have amazing travel experiences while you're still inside 270, because we have such a great diversity of food from all over the world in Central Ohio.
Now, this is kind of hidden deep, but you are a Himalayan expedition leader.
Yeah, I've done.
I love this.
I've done quite a few different things. This is not my first career.
I love it. How long were you that? And this is intriguing.
That was it was a 3-month expedition. I did some other expedition leadership, but the Himalayan one was a 3-month expedition.
Just the word Himalayan, I'm going, no way. Excellent. That's great. What's a typical tour like?
So all of our tours that we offer are food tours, and a food tour is kind of a cross between a guided tour that you might be familiar with, like a kind of a history tour, and a progressive dinner. So on all of the tours, you're going to stop at different businesses and have some samples, have some things to eat, taste, have something to drink, and really learn about the business, hear their story. Often we get to meet the chef or the owner. We might get to go behind the scenes. But it's really just a different experience than just going to eat in a restaurant by yourself.
12 tours, including some private food tours as well. Talk about that.
So, yeah, we have 12 different tours that we offer kind of to the public. People can just go onto the website and buy tickets for the tours. And of those 12, 4 of them are neighborhood walking tours, like the Grandview Avenue walking tour. We have a Short North, a German Village, and a Worthington food tour. So they're all walking tours. And then we have van tours, where we go off and explore ethnic restaurants, or we taste lots of desserts, or we do coffee. We have a meat lovers tour. So they're kind of more themed tours that cover a wider area. And then we also do, as you mentioned, private tours. So that can be for a group of 8 or more people. We do a lot of corporate tours, either for team building, or maybe they're entertaining clients and they want to really show off Central Ohio. So we do a lot of tours for groups, but we also do, some birthdays or bachelorette parties. So all kinds of different groups.
Going over your website, I really don't think you've missed any detail. I love the FAQ section, especially if you have any questions about what a tour is going to be like or what to expect during the tour. You've got it covered there. Yeah, we try to. We have videos of some of the tours. We have a lot of photos on the website as well, and we try and give people answers to questions they'll have and give them a kind of an intro to the tour without too many spoilers. Sometimes if you read too much about something before you do it, it kind of can take away from the experience a bit. So we try not to spell it out too much, but we do
like to explain things to people before they come on a tour.
Website address is?
ColumbusFoodAdventures.com.
We'll have those and that link in the podcast notes as well, too. Thanks for being a part of the Business Inspires Podcast Extra.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.